All right, so welcome to another episode of Finding Your Way with Lori and Tonya. We are so excited you found us. And listen, if this is your first time, we promise you found us on purpose. There's always a reason. We truly believe that you are here for a reason. And if you are a subscriber and this is not your first podcast, we thank you. We're super excited to have you back. And we hope that you'll share this with people you love that you feel like could use our message. So today, we're going to talk about a topic that is near and dear to our hearts, but has taken us a long time to embrace. And I'm still working on it, but it is self-care.
Yeah. So, and I don't know, y'all can tell by our accents, Tonya and I are from the South. And so in the South, women that are raised in the South specifically, I would say it's almost this expectation, and maybe it's everywhere, I don't know, but I just know what I live. And so it's almost this expectation that you give completely of yourselves to others, with you being sort of way down on that list, because that's just the way you do it, because you're a Southern woman, right? You have to take care of your husband and your family and your community and your church and your job and all the things. And somewhere further down the list is this comfort level of taking care of yourself, but it's only after everybody else's needs are met, right? And so, with us being sort of in that kind of environment, I think this one was a hard one for us. I mean, you always hear you can't fill from an empty cup and all that, and you hear it, but you don't really embody it, I'd say, until you really start to get it, that it really isn't selfish. Because how are you serving if you're serving from lack, if you're serving from a depletion, if you're serving from this space of sacrifice versus this space of abundance and love and from the overflow of what you have? Because if you're always almost stealing from your reserves to serve others, they're getting the leftovers. They're not getting the good stuff. And so That's what self-care is about, is putting yourself in this space and doing the things you need to do so that you are giving fully of yourself when you do give, because that's when you actually help people.
Absolutely. And again, as a mother of three, a working mother of three, that at the time, prior to when we got started in this work, married and all the things that all the women have, I was not the priority. And for me to sneak away and take a few minutes for myself made me feel guilty. But what I can say, and what I noticed as we started doing this work, and we really started doing this internal work, and I heard self-care, and and it's even more now come to the forefront of, it's a buzzword now, right? But when we started this 6 years ago, I'd really never heard about self-care. And to me, it meant going to get a massage. Like, I'm going to sneak away for an hour. I'm going to get my toes done or my nails done. So that was what I identified with self-care. And then I thought, well, I can't do that. I don't have the money to do that. That's $100, or I don't have the time, or I've got to do this, or the boys have that. And so self-care tend to be something that costs money, that you had to go and do. And that just seemed silly. Like, how is that filling me up? And so I think what I've realized over time is it can be anything. Self-care can be anything. And we'll kind of go through some ideas of what we do now as considered self-care, but it can be anything that fills you up, that gives you a sense of fun, joy, laughter, peace, harmony, all those feelings that you need so that you can give those things to other people. And I think for me, and we've talked about this, is for a long, long time, I gave to a lot of people, but it was out of a place of sacrifice, just like Lori said. So I was given and given and given, and became very aware of how much I was giving. And the expectation was to get things in return, and I wasn't getting anything from anybody. And so then that giving became out of sacrifice, and I started feeling not happy about it. It really started feeling I was having to do it, but I wouldn't enjoy doing it. I wasn't enjoying it at all. And then once I got it, once I was like, okay, wait a minute. And I started filling up my own cup and putting myself first, is when that giving started feeling good again. And I was doing it out of love and not out of sacrifice. And I was no longer resentful. I had become resentful for all the things I was giving other people. But when you give it from a different place because you've got it to give, it becomes out of love and not sacrifice.
Absolutely. And in addition to being resentful, I know for me, it was this feeling of feeling like you were being taken advantage of, even though a lot of times it was me giving and over giving for whatever reason, whether that was to feel loved, to feel appreciated, whatever I was doing it for, almost feeling like I was being taken advantage of by the people I was given to, even if they had not asked me to give them a darn thing, and it really does make you feel lousy. And so you have to become self-aware. Like if you're feeling run down all the time, if you're feeling that feeling of resentment, of being taken advantage of, doing things, but they don't really fill your cup, they don't really bring you any joy, you feel worse after you do them than you did before you did it, that's the time to sort of take a step back and go, okay, what's happening here? Like, is it that I'm putting expectations on myself, which is what I was doing a lot of times. I was trying to meet a standard that only I was holding myself to, right? And by doing that, I was wearing myself out. I was so worn thin that when I was giving, it wasn't of the best of me. It was the worn out version of me. And so that's why, self-care, really rethinking it. Like you said, surface level, you think it's little treats that you do for yourself, but it's really so much more than that. It's how do you get back to that place where you don't feel depleted? And that can look different for everybody. Like you're the only person that can answer that for yourself. Like what makes you feel whole and like you're giving from a full place, from your full self, and not feeling like you're giving because it's the last little bit you got to give. Right. And so some things.
Well, and I'll say,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
So some things for me, I maybe started with some of those surface level things like, okay, I'm going to take time out and go get a facial because that's something I can do for myself. But then you have to sort of look at it. Is that really helping me feel not depleted or better? And if it is, that's wonderful. Go do that. But if it's not, let's try something different. And so maybe for me, a lot of times it really is getting out in nature. It's maybe my favorite place is the beach because there's something about that salt air. It's giving myself the time to go and spend, away from the doing and just being in nature, being where you can actually breathe deeply, fresh air. And it doesn't have to take that long. It doesn't have to take a whole lot of money to do that. And that's a real simple one that most of us can do by just going outside.
Well, and it's a little thing, it's training for your 5K. It's training for your Ironman. It's that daily practice of, I'm going to do this. This is a goal I've set for myself. And then it's just for you. You're not doing it for anybody else. And so those activities, that physical activity, all those things start to fill you up and it makes you feel good. That adrenaline, that sense of flexibility that your body has, just the energy you get. So it can be those types of things. And I know for me, something that I didn't identify as self-care until later is the things I stopped doing. I stopped saying yes to a lot of things that I was saying yes to that I didn't have time for, I didn't enjoy. So for me, some of my self-care was backing off and not being the team mom for every sport, every event, everything my kids were doing, not organizing every party, everything at home and at work. It was being okay with letting somebody else take the lead and me bringing the cupcakes. And that was huge for me. But it really was what I needed. I needed that time back, and I needed to de-stress. And so, it was part of my self-care was finally saying no to some things that weren't filling me up. If they became more depleting than they were uplifting, I would say no to them. And of course, with work and stuff like that, there are some things you can't help. But for the most part, I would not pre-volunteer myself like I did before. And it felt amazing. And it took me a while to realize.
You say it felt amazing, but both of us struggled with that. Because I don't know if you remember this, but both of us struggled with starting to not be the one that always volunteered, or not being the one that jumps in to help. Because when you're so used to doing that, it feels very uncomfortable. And it's almost like I can remember these voices in my head a little bit of, okay, I'm sitting here, I'm not going to say anything. Like, they're asking for a volunteer and I am biting my tongue. I'm not going to say anything. And it's almost like the voices in my head were going, people are looking at you. They think you should volunteer because that's what you've always done. It's uncomfortable, but you have to get uncomfortable. If you're going to change that, you have to come out of that comfort zone just a little bit to do that.
And the judgment, like I felt like people were judging me. Oh, well, what happened to her? What is she doing now? Why is she not helping? She always helps. Like, is she too good for us? Does she not like us anymore? And honestly, it wasn't about against them. It was for me. And so it really, that has been huge on my list of self-care. And it's something that I didn't think about being self-care until I realized how much more I was getting from it and how much fuller my cup was. That's definitely something that has helped me.
You just mentioned something that really stood out to us was when you are starting to say no to things you typically would have said yes to, really thinking about it like it's not against that thing, it's for me. And that was a huge mindset shift for us, but that we always kept coming back to it because it's not against them, it's for me. And then another thing, Jim Bunch, if anybody knows who he is, he's marvelous. He always says, is it inspiring you or expiring you? So it's almost like looking at everything you're doing on a daily basis and putting them through that scoring rubric. Do they go in the inspire pile, or do these things go in the expire pile? And if they are going in that, they're expiring you, then what needs to change? And really pay attention to things that inspire you, because those are the things that go on your short list of the things that can get you back to your self-care and filling back your own cup.
Right. And I've got a friend that she loves to volunteer. She raises her hand and volunteers for every single thing, and it does fill her up. Mm-hmm. However, I've been trying to teach her over the years that as much as it fills you up, physically and emotionally, the things you volunteer for are heavy. So you still have to, even though they make you feel good and like you're being helpful, you still have to keep your physical and mental health in mind and still do them, but give yourself some time in between to rest and relax. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's something to be said about, finding things that inspire you and going and do them doesn't mean you have to do. Right. There's okay to get in the bed on a Thursday and say, I need a mental health day, and tell my children, do not knock on my door, do not call my cell phone from downstairs, and take the day off and literally lay in my bed and read a book, or lay in my bed and do nothing but meditate all day. I mean, I never would have done that before. And now on occasion, I have to, and it's like plugging myself in. It recharges my batteries. And so it's those types of days too, where you just don't do anything. You just take a 3-hour bath. Anything that you do that just it flips the switch of you need to relax, exhale, so that you can start inhaling again and moving forward.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a buzzword anymore, but this whole notion of adulting, and I don't want to be an adult today. And, nobody told me that this is what an adult is going to be like. I think we've lost sight of being an adult should be freeing, right? Yes, as a child, you're free because you've got an imagination and you don't have this many responsibilities and things like that. But as an adult, you're supposed to be able to choose your life and choose how it's going to be. And I think sometimes we just get so wrapped up in the rules and the expectations and the responsibilities that we lose sight of today's supposed to be the best day. And it is getting back to that freedom of you get to choose. And so what are you choosing? Are you choosing the things that consistently drain you? Or are you choosing things on a majority of the basis? There are times where you just gonna have to step up and do things. So you got to do what you got to do, right? But over time, the little daily habits, what are those things that we can do that really helps replenish us versus drain us?
And just slip them in.
Yeah, slip them in every single day. And so that's what we think self-care is. It's not selfish, and it's not surface level, little things that don't really feel your soul. It is really getting a little bit deeper than that and figuring out for you, what is that? And I know we talked about women in this episode, but it's for anybody. We're women, so we can identify our struggles, but everybody, I'd say, all you have to do is go to Walmart and look around. People are depleted. They just are depleted, and we all need some replenishment. And so that's what we feel like self-care is. Whatever you have to do to replenish yourself so that you're giving your best self.
Well, and you said it too, is when we start giving, and Lori a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, sent me a text message, and because we do this for each other sometimes, and it was a text message about an intention that we were setting for ourselves, kind of an affirmation. And it in the end was that we are so excited and joyful that we are giving from our overflow. And it was kind of an aha for me. And I was like, damn, Lori, that was good. And I remember writing it down, and I remember that I still use it on occasion. And that's where we should be giving from, right? We get super excited about our Facebook group and about our workshops that we do and about our podcast. And we get so excited about these things, but they are also extra. We have full-time jobs, right? And families and people who need taken care of. And so the hint is to give from the overflow. And not from the cup that keeps just, you're pouring out and by the time you're done, you're empty, but that we're given from that place of just abundance and overflow, and that people, because we're happy and joyful and giving, they feel it coming from happy and joyful and giving. And so I think that's also key.
And it affects every part of your life. Like if we could all get there where we take care of ourselves to such a degree that we're given from the overflow of ourselves, our finances are going to soar. Our relationships are going to be so much better. The sex is going to be good, y'all. When you're in that space from the overflow. Your job, what you bring to your career is going to just be so much on point and much better than if you're dragging your tail to work every day, right? I mean, you're just going to be a better employee, a better sister, a better everything.
Yeah, the energy is just so different, and you're giving it from such a different place, and it's a place of this love, and people feel it. The universe feels it, God feels it, and then just brings more of that to you. When you're giving from depletion, you start getting depleted. When you're giving from overflow, the abundance just keeps coming. You can't stop it. And so I think that that's how we want you guys to feel. And so self-care is where it's at. It's how you do this for yourself so that you can do it for other people.